Welcome to Radar Sense, a multiverse of reviews where we navigate the vast cosmos of entertainment and media. I'm your host, Roger Ahn, and on this podcast, we'll be your interdimensional guides exploring the diverse landscapes of sci-fi, fantasy, comics, cartoons, games, and more across the multiverse. My co-host today is my good friend, Shay Broadnax.
Each episode will journey through different realities, dissecting the latest releases, revisiting timeless classics, and uncovering hidden gems from parallel dimensions. Whether you're a cinephile, a bibliophile, a gameophile, or simply someone seeking your next favorite obsession, Radar Sense is your cosmic compass.
Hey, Jay, good to see you, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I feel excited to talk about Transformers today.
Yes.
Did I blow it? Did I blow the surprise?
I think when you see the title, when the 6 friends that we have are scrolling through and spot that under feed, we'll go, oh, Shay and Roger are doing a Transformers podcast. I think they'll know what they're getting into, so I think we're good.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm stoked. I watched the episode this morning for the first time in my life. No, obviously, just kidding. I watched the episode this morning for the first 1,000th time in my life. And I'm ready, and this is fun. This is like a fun way to hang out. Anyways,
I have really enjoyed through the years, especially during pandemic or when you're doing chores and you listen to a recap podcast. And I think the energy of it is that it might be a really old show, but it feels like you're watching it with a friend again, and it's this host. And I said, well, why don't I actually watch it with a friend and chat about it with a friend and record it for shits and giggles, like this. So I was really looking forward to this. I know we were talking about this for a long while, and we were thinking about how to structure it and everything. So, in my ideal world, somebody would click somewhere and there would be like every episode of Transformers Season 1 reviewed by Che and Roger. And so like planning for that, even though we're just on episode 1, planning for that eventual day, whether that comes in 10 years or 20 years, I'm going to read the script for that version of this, that packaging. So, all right, are you ready?
Okay, here it is.
Okay,
I'm
this
ready.
is when we're up to all the episodes. Okay. Welcome to Rewind and Roll Out, a Transformers retrospective where we journey back in time through the metallic annals of Cybertronian history. I'm your host, Roger Ahn, and together we'll embark on an epic voyage through the vast cosmos of Autobots, Decepticons, and everything in between. Today, my co-host is Che Broadnax.
I wasn't ready. We'll just cut all this.
Oh yeah, or we won't. It'll be funny.
Or we won't. It's fun.
Yeah.
So I had it on mute. I was about to eat a French fry. In this podcast, we'll rewind the clock and roll out the red carpet for each era of the Transformers saga. From the classic 80s cartoons to the blockbuster films that I don't like and beyond. Join us as we delve deep into the Energon-infused nostalgia of yesteryear, dissecting episodes, analyzing characters, and reminiscing about the iconic moments that transformed our childhoods.
Yes. Do you remember, as a child, the first time that you saw Transformers in 1984?
Honestly, I don't. I do not remember the first time I saw it. I just remember, like, I had to be watching it. I had to, it was like, make sure you get home from school and don't dilly-dally. I was a consummate dilly-dallier when it came to going to school. But on my walk back, had to be home in time for Mysterious Cities of Gold, Transformers, and then if I was hanging out with friends, G.I. Joe. Yes. I never liked G.I. Joe myself, but I watched it so much. And when I got to college, somebody was like, hey, do you remember this one thing where blah, blah, blah? And I just was like, yeah, that was the episode where Snake Eyes gets radiation sickness and the old guy pulls him in from the snow and like gives him herbs to cure. And I was like, oh, I guess I like G.I. Joe. Like,
Amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that just like paints a picture that many of us had, like when we were watching Transformers during that time. I mean, I'm a dad. I've got two kids, and it's not the same. Like there's not like these Saturday morning cartoons. It's not like this almost like weekly church gathering or daily. Like when you go over, and these new episodes are coming on. It's on demand or it's personalized for yourself. And I apologize if you hear the drilling in the house above. Like we'll just make
I
pretend
don't.
those are sound effects of Cybertronian raids on energy sources and such. So let's
Listen, we don't, you mean for a change? Like
yeah.
the first time I got my hands on a power tool, obviously I just started walking around me like vroom, 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 like to this day.
Yes, yes. So that is
Okay,
very
anyways.
apropos. So this thing opened up, man, and they were in space. And I was a little kid. I don't think I had seen Star Wars or Star Trek yet. It was just a star field, and it just grabbed me. I remember it grabbed me, and this amazing voiceover came on. And it just started explaining the whole story. And I just went, what is this? And look at this rugged, weird planet with like sharp
Yeah.
edges coming off of it with all these colors. And they just kind of did so much with just the camera panning over that. How'd you feel when you saw that again?
I love it. I have to say, I have always I have all these references of animated space scenes that I've collected for my own stuff, and also just because back in the days before digital animation or CG, they were always just these washes of hand painted stuff and with nebula, and it was all so organic and tactile. You could often see the brush strokes in it. But this beginning, I loved the Cybertron stuff as a kid. I loved all the we're not in this episode, but there's all these episodes later where they flash back to ancient Cybertron and stuff. But it opens so strong with kind of a classic pew, pew, pew,
Yes.
soundtrack. Yeah, you got a guy with the deepest voice as the narrator, just telling you, yeah, exactly, giving you the rundown.
He kept coming back. His voice was so distinct. It was so distinct, and every time you heard it, you were like, wow, I'm in Transformers. I'm in this world. And he might have been a voiceover artist for other narration in other places. I feel like his voice is very familiar. I Googled him, and it's funny. I wrote some minimal notes coming into this, and I did Google him to find his name. I don't remember it offhand right now, but I just said, he deserves a call out because he sets the tone. He sets the tone right there. You get in. This is a toy property that already existed in Japan, right? That is kind of getting rebranded and having all the story built to it. So we open, we jump on in there, and we got two of my favorite characters of all time. We got Bumblebee and Wheeljack hanging out there. And I love it. They're just over there. There's this contrast in size between the two of them, and it's rugged. It doesn't. They're in trouble, and it's not kind of like other kids adventure cartoons. They're just we're starving for energy here.
They're losing the war.
Yeah.
It begins. It's very I grew up with Star Wars. I was born with Star Wars. So I was always yeah, oh yeah, the underdogs, right? The rebels. So it starts off, and it's they're not even stealing energy. It's they're stripping old buildings for parts, right? And that was and it's 84. One of my favorite movies of all time as a kid was The Wiz, where there's all this urban decay. So the idea of this sort of collapsed city but of robots I was just in 100%.
And I have this distinct memory as a kid of them transforming and me going, what is that? That's really cool. Bumblebee's
these space vehicles.
Yeah, he's some hovercraft, and Wheeljack is sort of this other kind of hover van. And
Yeah, he's a hover van, and then he's a sports car
yeah,
on Earth. So
yeah,
it's like an interesting
uh-huh.
that is like an interesting change. And if you were like familiar with the toys going into the cartoon, like I don't know what day the cartoon premiered versus when the
Mhm.
toys got into
Yeah.
stores, but
I
I
remember when I got the Gold Bug toy. I don't know if you remember the Gold Bug toy.
oh yeah,
And
sure, of
his
course.
arms kind of came up like this, and I would remember, like, I was like 9, and already I would be like, oh, when his arms are up like this, he's the hovercraft. I used to make pretend he was
Oh, you
Bumblebee.
would put yeah, you
Yeah,
would poke him
yeah,
out and do the
yeah,
hovercraft.
yeah,
Yeah, oh yeah, because he was one of those like pullback
yeah. The
guys,
throttle
like run
bots.
them. Yeah, the throttle bots like
Yeah,
run amok and
yeah. They
the
had
other
weird
one.
names. They had weird names. We'll get up to there when,
Yeah,
50
yeah,
months
we're
from
wait.
now
Yeah,
when when we're like a decade from
yeah.
now. But
Wait, so
they get
the
going.
other thing, the
Yeah.
other thing that's so cool about the beginning
Hmm.
is, or I mean, about Bumblebee and Wheeljack,
Yeah.
right? Uh, is they're just like that's about enough energy to last a Quartex,
Yeah.
and it's like okay, we've got made up words.
Yeah.
Like I'm in. Like
Uh-huh.
there's something about that,
Hmm.
and then besides Quartex and like we got to get this back to Iacon, they also just so that they don't get you too lost talk about astroseconds and mega miles. So you're
Yes.
like, okay, all right, okay, I know what's going on, I guess.
They got the made up units, just like the parsecs in Star Wars. It's good. We got 3 of them. I didn't even notice we had 3 of them. So
Yeah,
they get going, and immediately there's a bunch of seekers waiting for them. And as a big toy aficionado, I'm surprised with
yeah,
how many toys have come out of just this one moment. We've never seen these seekers again, but you expect it to be Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp. But instead, it's like a bright yellow, a bright green, and a bright blue guy, which they later rename, like, I think it's Sunstorm, Acid Storm, and Ion Storm or something. But it was just like a fast coloring choice. But they've got weird weapons.
yeah.
One of them's got like a heat circle thing coming around and stuff. And I just went, I'm so surprised with how much that moment has lived in Transformers fans' memories for decades after.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Well, I mean, there's a transformation into a Cybertronian seeker
Yes.
in the end credits,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Uh, so that is one thing. And also, I don't know. I mean, when I was a kid, I absolutely remember being like, man, why don't they make the Cybertron forms?
Yeah.
I mean, besides Soundwave, you could just,
Uh-huh.
okay, I'm in
Yeah.
Cybertron form as like a street lamp or whatever. Um,
I love that part, by the way. The street lamp is like you could do
yo,
it with the toy. They
you
really
can
thought
do
about
it with a
Yeah,
toy. Yeah, we
he's a
did that.
T. He's a T. And I mean that's
Um,
kind of why I wore Soundwave's t-shirt today. Because
yeah,
I thought about it. I was like, well, I was originally going to wear my Optimus Prime t-shirt. I got 4 t-shirts. I got Optimus Prime, Megatron, Soundwave, and Grimlock. And I just sat there. I said, nah, if I had to think about like my favorite parts of episode 1, it has to do with Soundwave. He's got so much charm. He's the only true Transformer that's doing it the way that it should. Like he's transforming so he could hide. He's the only one
yes,
who's really
yeah.
hiding.
He's like a robot
Yeah.
in disguise, and it's
Yeah.
like part of his whole
Yes.
shtick since
Uh-huh.
he's a spy.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah,
love
he's
that
also
t-shirt.
my favorite Decepticon.
Yeah.
And so right now we're actually representing my favorite Transformers.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
I also almost wore an Optimus Prime
Well,
shirt.
see,
But
that's why we're friends because we're on the same wavelength here. We almost did the Optimus Prime, and we're like, no, we gotta think about.
yeah, let's really rep.
Let's really
Yeah,
rep. Optimus Prime's got plenty of love, even by people who are casual Transformers fans.
yeah. Everybody knows Optimus
I'll
Prime.
tell you. I mean, even kind of reliving this nostalgia with my children. Like my 8-year-old, he loves Soundwave, and there's just something funny that like this is a kid who never had to use a Walkman or
Never
like
had
a
a
cassette
Walkman.
player, Like I got him like a Walkman just to show him, like, and then but it just makes sense. You see this guy and the cassettes pop out. It just makes sense. And 40 years later, it's still very, very charming. Yeah, very
Well,
charming.
and we can't forget that like the vocoder voice is
Yes.
like I mean like oh this is cool. Like
Yeah.
this is cool. And it's not just robotic, it's musical. So it like works.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, so they get in there, right? And
Yeah.
they get past the Seekers and they're in Iacon. Did they call it Iacon City or were they just calling it Iacon? I don't remember.
I think they just call it Iacon.
Yeah.
But they might call it Iacon City. I know they call it Iacon in the very first scene.
Right.
But they might say No, I think they just call it
Yeah,
Iacon.
they call it Iacon, and when it's in their Soundwave is spying, right? And you hear how dire it is. And they're just out of energy. There's no more energy sources left. And they say, we got to go on a mission to find new energy sources. And they've been spied upon. And it's such an interesting transition right there because the stakes are really high. And you look at the Ark, you go, what a cool ship. And there's something about that shape. I have built a cardboard Ark for my son to take some of my old Transformers and fly them around and stuff. And that shape is just so cool. It is so cool. And I think about the Nemesis, and it looks also very villainous. It's like almost like not quite Quintesson, but it's a little like it's sharp.
Oh yeah, it's sharp. It's pointy. It's like it's Wing Commander 3 era Kilrathi.
Yeah.
Actually, whatever. I'm just like, hey, you want to know? I know some nerdy things, y'all.
Hell yeah, that's what we're in for. You know, if anyone's going to like this podcast, that's why they're going to be into it, because they're going to be into the same stuff we are. Or nerd curious, I guess, you know?
Nerd curious, yeah.
Nerd curious. But this is a pirate battle.
Yeah.
This is a pirate battle, right?
Oh,
like
this is one of the first moments where you really are like, these guys really. Let me rephrase that. The creators of this show are really taking like the classics of the adventure genre, and they're doing it with these cool robots in space. Kids are gonna flip out because like kids might not have never seen a pirate ship battle before, so it's not actually like recycled for kids. Like it's like, you know, like as a kid I had seen Star Destroyers go up against like a blockade runner, but that's not the same thing as two same size ships, and it's like release the boarding tubes and like
it was,
and then
fun.
They poured. It's funny how like there's just all this like metal blocks getting thrown around as the sound effects.
Dude, they're like wrestlers. They're like wrestling, right? Like they're and they're just charging each other. I don't remember many things where it's just like two gangs of like characters, bam, duking it out like that. Yeah.
So it's like I was thinking about this a lot, right? Because they all have laser guns. Well, I mean, whatever they have, you know, blasters, null rays, whatever, fusion cannons, but they're not really using them that much here. And it's like, okay, well, one thing, they're inside a spaceship, and they don't want to like just blow it up around them, probably, but also. They're all so low on fuel that they're like really okay. I guess we're just gonna have to like punch it out. And it's also, you know, obviously for cartoon purposes, like the battle's over as soon as like, well, like in the movie, the battle's over as soon as like Megatron shows up. He's got a fusion cannon. What do you want?
I'm you know, jumping like so far ahead, right? But like. I've heard fan theories that you know, I don't get it. They have like shot lasers at each other for 2-3 seasons before we got Transformers movie. But in the first 10 minutes of Transformers movie, they're blasting each other. It's like doing real damage. And I love this fan theory that says that they needed all that time, those 2-3 seasons, to actually charge their weapons up to full lethality. Like they were that low on energy that like their weapons were ineffective until all that time. And I kind of go, that makes sense. I like that.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I like it.
So they're in there, and it is like, whoa, what happened? They crash, and I feel like this is the end of Act 1, and this is Act 2. As soon as it comes up and says,
commercial break goes.
4 million years later.
Yeah, that's a time jump. That is a time jump.
Does Cybertron still exist? Is what one of the robots say.
Yeah.
And in the comics, sometimes they go over that 4 million year period, and I think to myself, the way they speak, the way they live in a moment, if robots were alive for 4 million years, I swear, I think they would go insane. such a long time. How could you maintain your consciousness?
Well, luckily, I mean, it's a great question. It's a great question for Shockwave specifically.
Yes.
Like everybody everybody that left and is on the arc, like they're in sleep mode for those 4 million years, right?
Some theories said that because Cybertron was low on power at that point, that
everybody went into sleep mode.
Yeah, everybody went into sleep mode. And I love that we get to talk about this 4 decades later and wonder about this. But, I just thought that was worth a shout out because as a kid, you just went, whoa, dude, that's dramatic. It's 4 million years, right? And, when they get up, like, I still feel uncomfortable when I see Skywarp get revived first. Something about it. Like,
he was my favorite. He was my favorite Decepticon jet as a kid, so I thought it was cool.
Yeah. And I just felt the danger for the Autobots. I was like, oh my god, is he just gonna step on them and like crunch their skull? Like, even as a kid, I had some instinct that it was very, very dangerous, and you could still feel that danger today, I would say.
Well, I would say, yeah, I feel that danger. I'm like, oh wow, the Decepticons got revived first, and then later on, Starscream's acting a fool, and Optimus Prime gets revived, and it's like, oh well. I guess the Decepticons aren't the most ruthlessly efficient evil army of military grade and deception based robots. Like,
I guess they were afraid.
They really should have messed them up.
Yeah, maybe they were afraid they were in an unstable place and they had to get out of there because they were just fighting with them and they were like the Autobots could get up at any minute. Who knows? But I just wanted to call out. We were talking about Soundwave, we were talking about the others, but Starscream. I mean...
Oh, yeah. We get our introduction to Starscream, right? And very first line, Starscream is setting himself up to be like, we would have defeated the Autobots millions of years ago.
Yeah. Every scene he has, he's telling Megatron he wants his job.
Yeah. Hey kids, do you want to know what this robot's personality is? We got you. That's I was gonna say that's something I thought was really I felt like they're so efficient in these episodes by letting, and again, we have to be very clear that this is from the very beginning of the era of the toy cartoon marketing hybrid.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And okay, now this is the hilarious part. Now you pointed out how much plot there was. I thought about this. I said, how long is this episode? When we were watching, I said, it's 22 minutes. We are in 22 minutes of podcast, and we haven't even gotten past the halfway point. They jam-pack so many plot points in this episode, this 22-minute little episode.
Yeah, for sure. And and they're really good at being like, okay, they roll out the characters sort of incrementally, so you get a chance to know who's this character and what's their shtick, who's this character and what's their shtick, who's this character and what's their shtick. It's like, okay, we're gonna send out Hound and we're gonna send out Cliffjumper. Hound is curious and interested in this new environment. Cliffjumper is like trigger happy. He can't wait to bust some Decepticon creeps or whatever he says. That was not a good Cliffjumper. That was like more of an Ironhide.
I liked it. I didn't mind. Yeah.
It's fine. Speaking of Ironhide, in the battle in the arc before, 4 million years ago, or actually before that, Ironhide says one of my favorite things that I still say to this day. He says, "Ball leaking lubricants."
He's got lubricants, spilling out.
Leaking lubricants, Prime.
That's like blood spurting for him.
Yes, I always loved as a kid all of their things that they would say that were like Transformers slang. Like some of it is like, hold on to your rear axle, or hold on to your crankshaft. I'm shifting into overdrive, and it's like they're cars. Okay,
it was so fun. And that was another point I thought of, that I feel like some Transformers cartoons, modern day, right now in 2024, are getting back some of that feeling. But there was this while where they focused more into humans in the movies or in some of the shows or some of the comics. And yeah, I'm like, don't do that. You know, when they first came out, it was all about the robots. If you're a kid or if you're a nostalgic grown up and you're watching this, I don't really care about the humans. Show me the
Yeah.
robots.
Yep. The first humans show up like 2/3 of the way through the episode, and then the first like human characters show up in the last scene.
Yeah. You don't need the human perspective. You should be grounded in the Transformers perspective. They are human enough for us.
Yeah. I mean,
Enjoy.
I could write, I could write, I could do it if I wanted to.
Yeah.
I could write a Transformers movie that is through human eyes, but would I want to? I think I might. I think I might,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't be like the like the actual Transformers movies, which is like just a whole bunch of different people characters and a bunch of unrecognizable spinning shards of metal. That's not really what I would get into.
No.
I would do sort of like
Yeah.
in Transformers Prime. There's this one scene where like the three kids first wind up in like battle, and the camera is always like from the kids' perspectives, but like even lower angle, so it can catch like them looking up at these titans like battling, and that's actually the first time in the entire franchise where I was like, yo,
It's done right.
actually, like, yeah. And it was
And
like, oh,
Transformers
I
Prime,
do want to see the kids.
by the way, that's one of my favorite modern cartoons. It was well done. It was well done.
Yeah,
It was like
yeah.
they took aspects of the movies and kind of remarried it with what was appealing about this over here that we're talking about. You know,
Yeah.
and with part one, once they get out there, I mean, and come on, we got to give a shout out of. I just got to say again, with like when you're talking about Cliff Jumper being super aggressive, that has so much character that he takes that bazooka and he's ready to blast.
This little, and
Yeah.
that's also one of the things that's cute. It's like, oh, this little tiny like car, but he's like a sports car. It's like, it's
Yeah.
like, he's like quick tempered, and
Yeah.
he's got this giant gun, and
I love that Hound forgives him. He's like, well, you know, you should just say sorry that you missed. Like, it was clearly
Yeah,
the wrong
yeah.
thing to do.
yeah, that's pretty funny.
Yeah,
Sounds
so-
pretty chill.
Yeah, he had some like real graciousness of him. So this is where my mind needs notes. I feel like I
Yes.
remember everything very well through here, but then it gets like it's like too much plot for 22 minutes. Like those last like 5 minutes is like a third act, and it gets weird. It's like, whoa, the Decepticons are stealing all this stuff, wrecking things, accosting humans, and they go to the oil rig.
Yeah, they go to the oil rig.
Even to this day, it's like some 2001 Space Odyssey kind of thing. I go, I don't remember what happens on the oil rig, you know? And it's just like, they meet Sparkplug and they meet Spike. And yeah.
Like literally what happens on the oil rig is there's a big fight.
Yeah.
We as the audience meet Sparkplug and Spike.
Yeah.
And at the very last couple of shots, Optimus Prime tries to rescue Spike and Sparkplug.
Yeah.
But it is kind of just a generic battle at first. There is a great shot where it's like profile both Megatron and Prime like grappling with each other.
Yeah.
But other important things happen. Something that I forgot about is that this episode is when they invent Energon cubes. Like
Yeah,
they've had the
Soundwave.
Energon before,
He's
but
talented.
like they're just like, oh, we figured out that we can compress Energon into Energon cubes and transport it back to Cybertron. So it's like the Energon cube is not actually their standard like unit of energy.
Consumption.
It's like a
It's not-
new invention.
Yeah. Soundwave,
It's-
innovator, you know,
Yeah.
pioneer, inventor.
A
Makes it out of his
pioneer
chest.
energy
Yeah.
storage. Like,
Yeah.
Also, they could have just like sold the patent to Energon cubes to like Dr. Archigo or something, right? And just like and then just got a whole lot of money and bought energy from Earth and went like, you
there's
know,
some there's something so that's so funny. There's something really appealing about how he squishes those energon cubes down.
yes, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
and then it
everything about
explodes.
the process is really
Yeah,
is really kind of appealing. It's like,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
and then they're just like, and then they
yeah,
start glowing multiple colors.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's so interesting and appealing, and I always wondered. Well, once Soundwave did it, I never saw any Autobot make it. Where did the Autobots get theirs?
they're drinking oil, man. They're
Yeah,
guzzling gas.
yeah.
That's what they're doing. We gotta make sure the economy keeps chugging along.
Mhm.
It's 1984, right? When this show comes out. Um, so the U.S. has just sort of come out the other side of the oil crisis, um, which is such a kind of cool thing to inform that this entire series begins with Cybertron is dying because this war has been waging that has consumed all their resources, right? And then
Yeah,
they're looking for other sources and they wind up on Earth. So there's this like, the show doesn't uh, particularly spend time with that uh, with like the ramifications of that setting, like the environmental sort of message that can send, but it doesn't really have to because like as a kid I'm just like, uh-oh, like we can't plunder all of Earth's resources. That's some Decepticon nonsense.
yes.
Like, you know what I
It's
mean?
deep. It's deep.
It's yeah, that's and
Yeah.
also just for the record, since I'm definitely not going to write a Transformers movie, or I would have done it by now.
Mhm.
Um, if I was writing a Transformers movie, it would definitely be an energy crisis,
Yeah.
like not even analog, but like it would be about like
Yeah.
Earth's dwindling resources
Yeah.
and like yeah.
It's fascinating to be experiencing that, but have some covetous aliens be like, no, you guys are rich. You guys have everything we would want, and
Right.
yet you squander it, right? So there's that extra philosophy there. And
Yeah.
so I was thinking about when we were structuring this, I was like, do we do all three parts in one ep? I'm like, no, there's so much richness. You got to space it out. You got to do 3 episodes with this. So when they give this preview over here, the thing that always sticks in my head is them talking about something like the ruby
The
crystals
ruby.
of Burma, and I'm like, what did the Burmese think of this? They got that energy rubies.
Yo, and the way the way that it's just like the Autobots drive to the ruby crystal like energy source of Burma and like presumably drive back with Hoffer dragging Prime's trailer, if one recalls. I was just like, where is Burma again?
I know.
Like,
I'm gonna have to like research this.
oh, I
All
know
right.
where it is in real life, but as a kid, I definitely was confused
Yeah.
because it looked like it was just somewhere
Yeah.
around Arizona, which is kind of where I thought the Transformers lived. It's like, I guess it could be. It could be California.
So
California
we
has it.
got through episode 1. So insert podcast interstitial right here. Cool music. Okay, we're back, and maybe we have a commercial sponsor or something like that. So okay, now we're here. We're back. We're back. And what did you think of this episode? How'd you like
Um,
it, Che?
it's great fun.
Yeah.
Uh, it's it's a testament to some hard working creators that are like, okay, we got some cars that turn into robots. Uh, I don't know what's the story. Like,
Uh-huh.
bam. Um, it's simplistic. It like it sets it up with this idea that there's good good Autobots and evil Decepticons, or perhaps heroic Autobots and evil Decepticons, which is, again, simplistic, but not out of line for the type of media that was coming out at the time. Um, there's some moments that are really well animated, like not a lot. It's mostly like TV budget at the time, but there's a couple of shots where it's like, oh, like they added a whole extra shading color on there. Um,
I still
it's
love
really,
it. I
yeah,
still
it's
love it, man.
great.
Yeah, that first
It's
episode is so. I mean, even well, sometimes there's a boldness and simplicity, right? Where you can have like these choices that they were like, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. This is how bad they are. You can see they're fighting amongst each other. The good guys, they're gentle. They may not be as good at fighting, and and such. But you just had that all set up from episode one, and it just set up this universe, this franchise that's still going, that everybody looks back fondly. I mean, it always stands out to me with how charismatic Optimus Prime is, to the point where you hear people like change their names to their legal names to be Optimus Prime, or see him as a surrogate father figure that they didn't have as a child, or all these things. And that starts there. Like you said, the episode ends and you see Optimus's true character come out, where he's saving these aliens he's never encountered before. And so going into that, I was gonna say, if we get through all the episodes, every episode should have a MVP. So MVP for the Autobots and MVP for the Decepticons in part one of More Than Meets the Eye. Who's your choice for the Autobots?
oh, that is a tough one.
And let's exclude leaders. Leaders get a
Okay.
lot of love.
Okay,
Leaders get a lot of
so
love.
okay.
All right.
Uh, I want to say Bumblebee.
Yeah.
It's weird. He's not in it a whole lot, but right from the beginning, you're like, this guy's got spunk, and he's a little guy like me because I'm a little kid.
Yeah.
Um, he's also a little bit like, they play it like he's a little bit new to it. He's like, Prime said there'd be days like this.
Yeah.
It's like, haven't you guys been fighting for eons? Like, so you get the sense that like, oh, I'm kind of with this new guy. I mean, that's how I felt.
I see some other podcast shows where each host gives a vote on it, and then sometimes they have the same choice. I almost did Bumblebee as well, but after viewing this episode so many times through like the years, my personal MVP on the Autobot side is Cliffjumper. And because he is a contrast to Bumblebee. They're like the same model, but his personality is so different. And you don't really realize it until you're getting toys for your kid again, of all the Transformers that they've been remaking. But each Autobot's got like a twin, that you know the coloration and stuff that you didn't quite expect, right? Like Sunstreaker looks like Sideswipe, and Bumblebee and Cliffjumper. So they just did a repaint. And I just thought that it was so interesting that Cliffjumper was so different. And yet, like, if you're gonna choose like 5 Autobots and like all the new series, like, it's good to throw Cliffjumper in there because he's fun. You kind of get everything about him, even if he changes car shape and he changes form or role, or he dies in the first episode. Like, he's still really interesting. And I think that was all there when he's running around with that bazooka, when he's not listening, when he's doing all that stuff. So to me, he really served the story quite well for the Autobots.
Yeah. I was thinking, I mean, like when I was thinking about like, who do I want to give MVP to? Like I was thinking like Cliffjumper is the most like active character, it feels like, who like, and it's also good to like kind of make a mistake or whatever. Like, that said, I wanted to choose someone that was like a little more chill.
I mean, Bumblebee is the true MVP, I would say, because he just became the heart of the franchise, like
Right.
through the universe. So I'm just throwing a bone to Cliffjumper here, kind of.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I like you so much, you kind of deserve this, because everybody loves Bumblebee already.
So, and here's a question that I literally can't even fathom the answer. If Bumblebee and Cliffjumper come across as strong characters in the first episode, and they were very many people's like starter transformer,
Hmm.
and they're the same model,
Yeah.
right? Like, was there some thought into like, oh, let's take these two toys that are the same and really differentiate them? Like,
Mm.
was that like a mandate for the show in general, or was it a thought at all, or did it just kind of happen because they're just like, oh yeah, little guys, like these are
Yeah.
the little guys?
Yeah, no, it's fun to see all that and to think about a team, a writer's room with all this. But from what I've heard of the behind the scenes, it was so frenetic, and they were just like, yeah, we're gonna sell some toys, and yet to me, like all this heart went into it, and all this like good
Yeah,
choices that still endure. Okay, MVP, Decepticons. Who do you got?
Soundwave.
Soundwave. It's easy.
Yeah, just the whole an argument could be made
Hmm.
for Starscream for the
Hmm.
same reasons as
Yeah.
Cliff Jumper. Like, he's a very strong
Hmm.
character who's like about his thing.
Yep.
Obviously the late Chris Latta is a, a voice acting legend. Although Soundwave, voiced by Frank Welker, Megatron's voice, also obviously Frank Welker is a
Hmm.
legend too. Um, but yeah, it's Soundwave. It's
Yeah.
Soundwave's the coolest. He's the coolest.
Yeah, he's just so cool, and like you don't want to change him from being a cassette player. You
No.
can't turn him into a tank. You can't turn him into a spaceship. He's got to be a cassette player. It just makes sense. Well, dude, this was so much fun. You think are we gonna make it through the entire series?
The entire series, I don't know, but we're definitely going to make it through More Than Meets the Eye, parts
Yeah,
1, 2, and 3.
yeah, we're gonna make it
Um,
through. Yeah, I
and
think so.
hopefully we'll make it. Let me set the my first goalpost would
Hmm.
be making it to the movie,
I like
the
that.
1986 animated movie. Um,
So I've seen this in some recaps. How about we have an option to veto? We could have an
ooh,
episode coming up, and we'll come up with a number of vetoes we could have, like per season or something.
okay, yeah. Well, there's definitely an episode that I want to veto. It's the
Yeah.
episode that made Casey Kasem quit the show.
Oh,
Um,
what's that again?
it's we'll
We'll get
cover
into it.
it later on. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we'll get into it, man. Dude, I'm psyched. I'm psyched. It was really awesome rewinding and rolling
Yeah.
out with you, my friend.
Yeah.
Let's do it again soon. All right,
Yeah.
Jay. Let's say bye to all the folks at home.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching and reliving Transformers with us. All right.
We gotta
take
we
care.
gotta we gotta have like a signature a sign off where
Yeah.
we're like, like auto fans transform. Wait, what is it? Rewind and
Rewind.
roll out.
Yeah. Auto fans, rewind and roll out.
Oh, I love it. All right.